Hello, everyone. So I am Erica Williams, and I'm your moderator this evening. And so welcome to Mocktails and Cocktails with Endo Black. And tonight, we are talking mental health. So everyone knows that it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And so we had to ensure that we talked about this very much needed topic as we also explore endometriosis. So I'm excited with the panel of women that we have tonight. And also, once I tell you where they're from, I don't know if it's night or day, but we'll get to that in just a second. So first, we have Miss Brenda Roach. So Miss Brenda is from St. Philip, Barbados. She is with JRB Medical Center and a counseling psychologist. We also have Terri Benjamin. Terri is from Virgin Islands, and her company is Postpartum Wellness. She is an ancestral postpartum healer. And now we're going to bring it to the United States, and we have Terri, who is from Dallas, Texas. Terri is from the Mind Field and the owner and educator of the company. And then we have Dr. Rahmatu Kassimu. I just asked her. And she is with Dr. K's Health Minute. She's an educator, public health consultant, academic writing coach. I condensed these bios and just had to give you this brief overview because all of you have done so much, which is why we're glad that you're here to really, as we really dive into this very rich conversation about mental health and endometriosis. And so as we mentioned, it's National Mental Health Awareness Month. So all of you are advocates in some form of mental health awareness and or wellness. So let's just start as we learn a little bit more about you. Why did you decide to get into this industry? And we can start with Dr. Rahmatu.
Honestly, well, mental health has always been an area of concentration, an area of interest for me. I did my dissertation on mental health status of women of color who are teenage mothers, because mental health is like interwoven into every other part of our lives. And like mental health is a thing that sometimes gets put on the back burner, which is unfortunate because mental health has so many other effects that proliferate through other aspects of your life. Like your mental health affects your physical health. It also affects your emotional health. It affects, your social health. It affects how you move through life. And so it's one of those spaces where I feel like it's important to highlight and to promote and to help empower people with skills, tools to promote healthy mental health because it's important. Like there's no other way that I can say that.
No, for sure. Thank you. And what about you, Brenda?
Hi, good night, everyone. For me, I would honestly say that the profession found me. Mental health was not, I think, especially in the Caribbean, it's not something that was really spoken about. I think now with the pandemic and the push, it has really brought it to the fore. But I think for me, especially, and I think when we get into the conversation a bit more, I realized how important it was, especially for me, going through some of the things that I went through in life. And so I think that the profession found me in that way so that I can speak from a place of experience and be there to listen to women who may be struggling. And I think, like I said, especially within the Caribbean, it's good for them to have a space that they can come to where they're heard, where they are listened to, and they are understood.
Thank you. Terri?
It's two of us.
I just noticed, I'm like, Terri?
Yeah, I was.
Well, you guys are just gonna have to go for it. So I'm gonna say Terri and then, but Teri Cabrera.
Okay, I'll go ahead and go.
Okay, all right.
I established the Minefield to diffuse the stigma of mental health in minority communities. The whole goal of the Minefield is to create a safe space where we as Black people or people of color, however you choose to identify, can discuss mental health in a safe space, unjudgmental space, as well as we can strategize, excuse me, ways and how we can create a better environment for not only ourselves, but for our future generations, as well as trying to get our older generations to discuss mental health. Because I know we can all probably relate where I grew up raised by my grandmother. So whenever I was feeling sad or depressed and I would try to express that, I was just told, oh, you can pray that away. Or, oh, that's your white side. We don't have those problems over here. But that's not realistic. We all deal with that, even from being a teenager, transitioning on to college. We all experience bouts of depression, bouts of anxiety. And I'm just not realizing like, oh, like I'm low-key ADHD, and I've just been a perfectionist my whole life just because my brain is just going. That's the whole point of the Minefield, is just to get us to talk about these things so we can create a better future for everybody else. And that's pretty much why I got into this industry, because I don't want kids, myself, or anyone that I know to feel stigmatized because of how they are feeling, especially given culturally, we don't talk about mental health.
Thank you. And what about you, Terry?
I grew up with my mom struggled with postpartum depression and bouts of psychosis on and off. So I started off at a young age learning a lot about it. And as I went into college and I started volunteering at different women's centers for teen moms and moms of color who were struggling with mental illness or like various types of mental illnesses. So I kind of always was sensitive to it because I grew up seeing my mom struggle every day with it and never got the help that she needed. Back in the days, their modes of treatment were simply church, pastor, blessing them, anointing them, and, you know, saying that it's like evil spirits and that kind of stuff. And so she never got the help that she needed until it was like we were like grown teenagers. And then she started, she got diagnosed and she started taking medication and stuff like that. So yeah, it's something that I grew up with most of my life. And that's how I got started into it.
Thank you for sharing that. So as we discuss mental health, we know that there's been research that says women with endometriosis have a higher risk of mental illness, such as depression and anxiety. I'm not sure, I would love to know who actually, does everyone have endometriosis, or if not, okay, just wanted to make sure. So there's two parts to this. Your expert opinion from what you know, but then also just from this personal, tying into your personal experience, why do you think women who suffer from endo are more at risk? And we can go ahead and let's start with you, Terri Benjamin.
Well, there's several theories as to why that might be. Most recently, I've been reading a lot of research, and one of the things that they mentioned is various types of abuse, right? And I've seen that with some of my clients, various types of abuse and having endo and not having it diagnosed at an early stage to help them maneuver how they're going to not only cope and process and deal with their endometriosis, but also the mental health aspect of it, because some of them don't even know that they may have whether it's ADHD or bipolar, or they may have some type of mental illness that they're not even aware of. And by dealing with them every day, I'm like, maybe you should go get checked for this, because that could be hello? Hello?
Yes. Terry, are you there? Can you hear us?
Okay, so
We hear you.
oh, okay. Okay, you froze. Everybody just froze. Caribbean life, yeah, like internet is. I think I lost my train of thought. What was the question again? Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So the question was essentially, why do you think women with endometriosis are more at risk of mental health issues, specifically depression and anxiety?
Oh, okay, so yeah, as I was saying, most of the time they're not even aware that it may be depression or anxiety, or they might be bipolar, or either one of them. Most of the time they're not aware. And so because with the mental illness, you also have physical symptoms. With endo, you also have physical symptoms. And sometimes the symptoms are the same. And that's one of the things a lot of people don't pay attention to. With mental illness, it's not only emotional symptoms that you have, it's also physical symptoms. So that also can impact the way that they process, the way that if they go and get help, if they feel like if it's okay that they should go and get help. And so that plays a huge role with that. And there are several theories as to why women with endo may or may not struggle with mental illness and vice versa. There's the nutritional aspect, women not having the nutrition, being deficient in several things that may lead to it. They may have, I mentioned the abuse, maybe there was physical abuse, maybe they had probably like an infection or something that they didn't get checked. There's several theories as to why we might struggle with either at the same or varying times.
Thank you. And what about you, Brenda? Why do you think that women with endo suffer more?
I would agree with what Terry was saying in terms of not being diagnosed for such an extended period of time. So like from my personal experience, it was 10 plus years before I was actually diagnosed. And simply because it is a chronic condition as well. And so having to battle that every single month, you can see how someone can get depressed. You can see how someone can get anxious, because it's not just like Terry was saying, it's not just the physical, but it's all other aspects. And so when a woman starts to feel self-conscious about, when that time of the month is there and whether they should go out or not, or whether their friends are going to understand, if they can't make it, or whether the woman has to make sure she's always prepared. So, always having sanitary napkins in her bag, or a change of underwear, or a change of a bottom in terms of a skirt or a pants. I mean, those are real things that women grapple with. And a lot of people do not understand the lengths that we have to go through to try to make sure that we feel comfortable, right? And then just pinpointing bathrooms at whatever location you're at to make sure that you have access to a bathroom at any point in time. So you can really see how it can be a struggle and how a woman could develop depression or anxiety because of it. And then to a lot of women, I'm speaking from a Caribbean context mostly, they're told, you know, we are women, and so we're supposed to just get up and move on and do everything that we are accustomed doing. So even though we're in pain, we still have to be super women, get up and get children ready for school, or get up and make breakfast and dinner and everything like normal, and still go to work. And then if you have situations where you have bosses who do not understand, you know, that this is what is happening with you, you could be in crippling pain and no one really takes you seriously. It's a menstrual cycle. All women get it. So why are you so special? Right? And so it can become very lonely. And having to grapple that on your own, if you don't have the support systems in place, it is a killer. Honestly, it is a killer.
And we can just come on and chime in, have a conversation.
Well, I wanted to, something that Brenda just said, and that the whole superwoman woman is supposed to still show up and be it all. That also plays a huge role with moms who don't even know that they may or may not have a maternal mental illness, and they're struggling. They may have other kids that they have to take care of. They still have to show up. Maybe they're bleeding heavily this cycle, still have to show up to serve not only themselves, but serve their other family members, other kids. And this is where the link comes in with mental illness, and not only endo, but a lot of other illnesses, a lot of other physical chronic illnesses that women still have to fight through and push through, even though they're not feeling well.
Yeah.
I think, and this is kind of like, it's echoing what both Brenda and Teri said, but it's kind of like putting a bow on it. I think it's gaslighting. Like, and it's not that we just get gaslit from, we get gaslit from multiple like outlets of like, okay, like they said, you know, it takes an average of 10 years for people to be, for women to be diagnosed with endometriosis. And that's 10 years of telling someone, hey, something isn't right. This isn't right. And you're getting people being like, oh no, it's fine. It's just your period. It's your menstrual cycle. It's just that and the third. And then you're having to tell friends, you're telling family, you may have to tell like employers, and they're just like, but is it really that bad? And because those days, or because then you don't want to deal with it, is it really that bad? You push through it. And then when it really is that bad, or it actually is that bad, then they get used to you pushing through. And then when you choose to not, then it's like, oh, well, what's happening here? What's happening here? And I honestly think it's the gaslighting of like not seeing women, particularly not seeing Black women as being, well, one, you know, they obviously don't believe that we feel pain the same way, but not seeing, not believing, not taking that care, not understanding our bodies, and not understanding that when we advocate for ourselves, we're just being assertive, we're wanting the care that we deserve, as opposed to being argumentative or being aggressive. It's the gaslighting. Like if I'm standing up for myself and I'm telling you that these things are not right, and you're just being like, oh, well, it's normal, or oh, you need to calm down, or it's the nitpicking little things where like I'm telling you something is not right, or I'm telling you I don't feel well, and you're coming back with, that's all women.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think, Teri?
I also want to add that sometimes you just don't want to burden other people with what you have to carry. You get exhausted of constantly saying, hey, it's a high pain day. I just can't. And seeing like the disappointment, as well as feeling disappointment in yourself. Like, I want to go out and turn up and have a couple shots and do things with my girls because I haven't been able to go out with my girls. But every weekend I want to go out with my girls. Body says, psych, let's give you a pain flare. Also, I want to add, you got to factor in all these different little treatments they try for us, like Lupron. Lupron had me feel nothing. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sad. If I bumped my leg, I didn't feel it. And the highs and lows of that and all these different alleged treatments that are supposedly to do whatever they're meant to do for us to make us better or temporarily stop the pain, they affect your mental health so bad. Like Lupron, I just remember sitting in the shower with the water as hot as I could get it, just crying, wanting to feel. The closest thing that I could feel was my skin burning in the shower because I couldn't feel happy. I couldn't feel sad. I couldn't navigate anything. But life still had to go on. Bills still had to be paid. At the time, I was advising international students, so I still had to take on other people's energy too. When I didn't have, wasn't there.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Terry. And that leads me to a question for all of you. So you are advocates for mental health and wellness, but you also have endometriosis and all of the things that you mentioned, the gaslighting, the medications that make you feel worse at times. So how do you handle it? How are you able to handle and center your mental health amid all of this? Because while you're taking on other people's energy, you also have to take care of yourself. So how do you do that?
I'll start. So for me, I'm also a Reiki master. So Reiki is a process of using energy to help heal others, as well as you can target your Reiki to yourself. And ever since I've done that process with myself and centered with myself, I've experienced a lot more growth and healing, as well as I've been talking to my womb and reminding her that I love her. Because for the longest, I hated my body. I hated this. Like, what did I do in my past life to deserve this? And like to learn later on from my mother is that my mother had endometriosis, four of my aunts and my grandmother had endometriosis. So what in God's name did we do to get this curse? Because man bless her. Yeah. But I get my dimples from my mom. I like that. I didn't want this curse. But Reiki has been a lifesaver, as well as reminding my womb that I love her because she is a part of me. And ever since then, things have gotten better.
And then you raise a good point, right? Because you're dealing with it's your body, in your body with a chronic illness. And it almost seems that in that case as if your body is failing you. So finding a balance of how do I love my body despite what's happening is extremely, extremely important. So thank you for sharing that. What about you, Brenda? How do you center your wellness with a chronic illness?
I loved everything that Terry said too. In terms of falling, I had to listen, support systems, I must say, I have an amazing support system. And I will say, I found something that Terry said interesting was that, you said that your mother and your grandmother and that kind of thing going down the line. But I found that family members within the Caribbean, it could be all over actually, but from the Caribbean, you don't really talk about these pains that you get growing up. So, I mean, it would have been good to know if, my grandparents had terrible menstrual cycles. I mean, I only found out that it was my mom and then my aunt, but that was later down. But it's like, because it's so not spoken about, that helped to prolong the diagnosis. But so support systems, that really, really works for me. So my sister, my husband, they rally around me no matter what. So that is something that really, really helped. Falling in love with my body, because like you mentioned, Erica, it always felt as though my body was betraying me. Every time I wanted to do something, it would, like Terry said, nope, you ain't doing that today. That ain't for you today. Yeah, right. And so I had to learn to love myself, because at times I felt very ugly, because obviously you're getting all the bloating and then you're getting the heavy cycles and all that. What did I do to deserve all of that? Right. And so it was falling in love with myself. And then I was able to, I like to be supported by the floor. I always found, like, especially when I was having a bad flare up, just to lie down on the floor and be supported by the floor is the most wonderful thing. It's the most wonderful experience, I must say. I know when I first did it and my husband saw me, he was like, "You okay? Everything okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I just need to be on the floor and feel supported by the floor." And I found that that has helped. I do like to ground myself. And when I say ground, somebody else putting grounding on the chat, but yeah, I love to ground myself. And so because we are surrounded by constant sunshine, being outside, feeling the sun on my skin, or going to the beach and listening to the sound of the waves and that kind of thing, those types of things tend to ground me. And that has helped a lot. Yeah.
For me, so I'm not gonna lie, I had a very much, so I was diagnosed at 20. I was diagnosed literally on a fluke. They thought I had a hernia, and I was like, no. So they had me do all this other like gastro stuff, and then finally the gastrologist was like, maybe you got endometriosis, and I was like, it's endometriosis. And then I went and looked it up, and this is 2009, so the first thing popped up on Google is possible infertility, and I was like, wait, what?
Yep.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Even
So
in 2022, though, that's still there. Like
literally. So of course now I'm in a spiral because I'm like, what do you mean? And then I had the laparoscopy, and my doctor was like, yeah, you got stage 2. He's like, we were able to excise a lot of the growths, and a lot of your growths were more so like in the cul-de-sac, which is basically like underneath your uterus. And he was like, luckily, your tubes were cleared and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you saying I got endometriosis? He was like, yeah, but the growths don't, the size of the growths don't correlate to pain or whatnot. And I was like, okay. And I was like, so am I infertile? And he was like, well, we won't know. And I was like, so is the pain gonna come back? And he's like, well, we won't know. And I was like,
yeah.
So then I got put on Lupron, and I'm gonna say I'm in the small majority. Lupron was for me, okay. It was great. It was great. I had maybe 2 hot flashes. I had maybe 2 hot flashes. Now those were not great because the first one, it took me a minute to realize what was happening. Y'all, I was in the freezer aisle of Walmart fanning myself. Okay, that is. It caught me so off guard. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, is this what I have to look forward to in 40 years? But that whole thing of like, because if you had told 15-year-old me that by now I was not going to be married with 4.5 kids, 3.5 kids, excuse me, not 4.5, I don't want 5, 3.5 kids, I would have been like, of course. And so to hear at 20 that I may be in that 30% was like, I was in a hole. Mm-hmm. And now adult me can like say that I was in a hole, but 20-year-old me just acted like I was crying and like I was just sad. And, at this point I've had 2 laparoscopies, 2 myomectomies, because I also had fibroids. They decided to bring their raggedy ass to the party also.
As they often do. Same here.
Yes. And so, it's just, I had polyps. So it's just like how Terry said, I'm certified in like mindfulness now. And that honestly has been a thing that has provided me with a lot of like grounding and a lot of like being in the now, because there were times where I was like, yo, like I'm doing all this. And at the end of the day, I still may not, biologically become a mother. And so there were times like, I know after the second surgery that I had last May, I remember they woke me up and they were trying to move me from the bed and, or move me into my hospital bed. And I saw my mom and she was like, you did so good. And I don't know why, but I like immediately burst into tears. And they were just like, no, it's fine. You're okay. And my mom like face hugged me. And of course that just made me cry harder, but it's a waffling thing. And I find that when I have those moments of being like, okay, this is your body. And she has, yes, sometimes she ain't acting right, but overall, she has served you well for 34 years. and we gonna get her together. And you love her and we're gonna get her together. It's just, but again, there are those times where I'm like,
Yeah.
what else can I do?
Yeah. I want to ask though, because all of you, this is a kind of a safe space, right? Because we, everyone on here, even our guests, are either have endometriosis or are advocates for it. And so you can talk freely and where it's free of judgment and where people are, as you were just talking, I was like, yep, same here. But that's not always the case. And the same is also with mental health. So I want to kind of combine those. How comfortable are you speaking to your employer, to your friends, to those people who are important to you when you can't get to work or when you can't go to the event or to have some shots? As Teri said, are you comfortable at this point speaking about your chronic illness? And if you've had challenges of anxiety or depression related to it?
I put it in the chat too. It was kind of like a call to what Teri Cabrera said, of like not wanting to burden others or not necessarily wanting to face their helplessness, because people will like feel bad. And it's like, I don't want you to feel bad because I know that you can't do anything for me. Like, this is something that is going on internally with me. So I don't want you to feel bad because I feel bad, because now I'm going to feel bad because you feel bad. And so, there are days when I'm like, yo, I can't, I'm not feeling it, but like, I'll go. Or, again, like Lauren said, I got my backpack, I got my emergency bag. Should, I got the wipes, I got the pads, I got everything. I know where the bathroom is. I know, like, I got a timer, or I know, like, I'm ever watchful of my clock, because I'm like, okay, I need to go change, like, before something happens. But it's like those and I've had friends be like, but you're not allowing us to be there for you. And that's a struggle for me, because it's like, I get what you're saying, but also, like, I don't want to put that on you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Teri, since you were mentioning it also, Teri Cabrera, what about you? And talking to people, and how do you get past that idea, or do you still struggle with it of not burdening people?
Even with my whole platform of wanting to come talk about our mental health and growing and things like, it's very difficult, because I find myself to be that standard strong Black woman. I know that I'm the next matriarch of my family and I got to hold everything together, right? But sometimes I just want to fall. I want to break down and cry, but I don't necessarily have the space. I don't necessarily want people to see me that way, even though I have this talent of making people feel like they know me, but they don't know anything at all. Hold on, small child, your dad's upstairs. Sorry. I have a talent of doing that, right? So you think that you know me so very deeply, but you only know what I decide to show you.
Yeah.
And I hide that from my friends. Sometimes I hide it from my husband, which is upstairs, not your husband. See that? He's upstairs, baby. He's in the room. I hide that from him, and he has to force it out of me. He's like, you need to look me in the eyes. Yeah. You need to tell me what's going on. Because if I don't, he knows it spills out. For me, if I don't talk about how I'm feeling, at least with him, it's in how I cook my food. My food tastes different. How I get dressed is different. Sometimes, my hair's like this today. Sometimes it just be flat back in a bun and gel back.
Yeah.
Crazy. My students even be like, Miss, you okay? You okay? I'm like, no, but that's not your business. So it's work. I've been working on that completely. Is just being open. Yeah. It's still a struggle, as well as trying to, what's the word I'm looking for? As well as letting people in more. Mm-hmm. So I tend to be guarded about endo. I talk a lot about endo, but like, what was it, last July, I went to the ER for the very first time and I never told anyone. And I was frightened that I had my husband with me, but what if I would have died because I'm a Black woman?
Yeah.
Or am I being treated better because I'm a light-skinned Black woman? Or because, as an educator, as a Black woman, I'm running these scenarios in my head. Are you treating me better because I'm light-skinned? Because I can't stand for that. But do I need to say something? Because if I say something, they're going to kill me. But those thoughts shouldn't even be running through my brain at this time. I need to be worried about what is wrong.
Yeah.
If it could be fixed.
And this is all because you don't want to burden people with it. So is it that? Is it also that you don't want to appear helpless, or is it more of the burden part for you?
For me, I would say it's that burden. I didn't even tell my grandmother until a month after when I went to the ER. And she just like, you hear the big audible gasp, like, she said, why didn't you tell me? I would have been there the next day. And I'm like, but what could you have really done?
Yeah.
And the look in your grandma's face when she can't help you. Yeah. That's worse than anything.
Yeah. And so Brenda and Terri Benjamin, with all of this and you hearing what the other two ladies were saying, how do you manage that? And how do you think that really can affect your mental health, right? Because you're holding so much in. So tell me a little bit about what you think and what you do.
I mean, for me, it is, again, I think it's that strong Black woman mentality that we've all grown up with. That's what we have been taught. That's how we were raised. And I always try to encourage my clients, because I had to work through it myself as well. There are some morals, there's some values that you would have grown up on, right? They served you well for the time that you were growing up, but are they still useful to you now? And for a lot of people, I find that they do not look at that. They keep living by the same standards, the same values, the same morals that they grew up on as children, even if they're not serving them. And so you find then that those standards and those things that we were living by are doing us more harm than good, right? And it's okay to let them go. And so it's that process of letting go those things that don't serve us, that then enable you or allow you, give you the chance to share what you want to share, how you want to share, and live your life the way that works for you. And that's it. I think all of us have to always remember, we have to live our lives for us, right? And how we decide we're going to live our lives, it may not look appropriate, it may not look right to an outsider looking in, right? But we have to be comfortable with ourselves, just the same way we were talking about falling in love with ourselves, falling in love with our bodies and stuff like that. How we live is going to look different to how everyone else lives. And so for me, I had to learn that. And in so doing, it has freed me to be able to talk a lot more about me with everyone. So I found, for me, I have let go of that being a burden to someone, because I always encourage people to talk to yourself the way you would talk to a friend. If you were talking to your friend, you would not tell your friend that she is a burden to you, right? Unless you're a really crappy friend, but you wouldn't tell your friend that. And so why would you tell yourself that you're a burden to someone else? You're important. We are all important to the people who are in our lives. And yes, I mean, a lot of people will not be able to do anything at that point in time when we are going through our flare-ups and that kind of thing. But just knowing that someone is there, you can just let them know, I don't want you to do anything. I just want you to be there. Because sometimes we just want someone as a presence. We don't want them to do anything. I mean, sometimes I wanted, like, my husband would rub my back for me or anything like that. Fine. But then there are just sometimes when we just want a physical presence, and that's okay too. So I think it comes back to, letting go of those values, those standards that we grew up on, letting those go and living our lives the way that serves us.
Yeah. Because I think even with Terry and mine is not as much about burden. I don't want to tell you and you don't understand and I get mad. And so, and I know that does not serve me, Brenda. I know it doesn't. And a lot of times I just won't say anything. So, I'm working on that. What about you, Terry?
Terry B or Terry C?
Terry B. We haven't heard from you for this one.
I agree 100% with Brenda. With me, I'm like the opposite. Like my mental health came first. Like I was diagnosed with clinical depression like before my endometriosis diagnosis. And so for me, that comes first in my life because I had an attempt on my life. Like I attempted suicide way before. So when it comes to my mental health, like everything is on the back burner. That comes first. And my husband, he knows, and I have like certain really close friends that are aware. So they know the signs. Like I would say, make sure that I'm not shutting down and going within, because like my husband, for example, he'd be like, he calls several times. When he comes home, he checks in with me just to make sure that I'm in a good place mentally. So for me, that is my main focus. Like even sometimes if I'm on my cycle and it's really bad, I just make sure I do castor oil packs. There's things that I do to help with the pain. I make sure that I'm eating properly, like I'm eating a wholesome meal. Nutrition is important for me, so I make sure I take care of that. But honestly, I just really focus on like my mental health aspect because I get so afraid. I know the alternative, and I'm like, I really, like most of the time I'm just so afraid. So I make sure that I check all the boxes just to make sure that I'm not spiraling down into that hole. And my endo is not the only thing that can make me spiral down into that hole. There's life.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of things that come at you every single day that you're juggling. And I also have other pre-existing conditions that I'm also juggling. And so it's a lot. And I just try to prioritize everything, make sure that my support team is there with me, my husband, my family, the women in my family, like my mom, my sister, my big sisters, they've all had, whether it's endo or fibroids. My mom had a hysterectomy, and so she started menopause early, and she had an idea of the different types of medications. And so I just have like that unit there to educate me, to tell me, okay, this is what you need to be doing, and this is what you don't need to be doing, that kind of stuff. So the support is there. And with them, because they also struggle with mental illnesses, I also have that to help me, guide me on my journey.
Yeah. And community is extremely important, which is why Endo Black is extremely important, where we can have these very important conversations. I've enjoyed this with you all, and I could ask you more questions all evening, but I don't want to be selfish, and I want to allow our attendees to ask questions as well. If there are any questions that are in the chat that we have for our panelists, then you could just type them in the chat. All right. So I don't think there we go. I was about to ask mine. So would love to know what y'all do to ground yourself. What are your rituals or meditations?
I'll
Very
start. So for me, it's one, taking that good old fashioned Epsom salt bath, cleansing my aura, getting all that, getting it all fresh, especially because, you know, I'm a teacher. I take on so
Yeah.
much. Then from there, I sit in I call it my prayer room, get my incense, maybe light some sage, depending on how I'm feeling, and just sit. And I focus on breathing first. Because again, I'm a little high strung at times. So I have to remind myself to calm down and be here. Because I think I'm a lot of future focused. So I'm always anxious because I'm worried about, okay, what are we going to do tomorrow? What are we going to do this day? Or what is life going to look like in 5 years? I just have a random epiphany at times of, well, I have to plan. I've accomplished all my before 30 goals. I have no other goals. So what am I going to do? And reminding myself, okay, you need to be here in the present. Let's focus on our breath. So I sit in my prayer room, have my favorite scent going, and I just breathe. And then from there, depending on the weather, because, you know, I'm out here in Texas, it can be very hot. It can be very muggy. But I like to just go outside on a nice, cool morning or a cool evening, put my feet in that grass and just breathe and calm down.
Yeah.
It's something about the outside. And, if you ever been to the South, the cicadas, the sound of the cicadas and being in the deep South, it just is so soothing to me. And then for me, I live in the Dallas area, so I live in Pleasant Grove. So that's predominantly a Latino neighborhood. So you either hear the mariachi or the banda start playing, and my neighbors got the carne asada going, even though they don't invite me to the taco party. But it's that feeling of putting my feet in that grass and focusing on the present, listening to the cicadas, listening to everybody turn up around me, but you hear the joy that's going on, and it's just so soothing. That's what works for me.
Thank you.
Mine is similar to Teri's. I also am in Dallas. I'm not in Pleasant Grove though, but I used to work in Pleasant Grove. Or rather teach in Pleasant Grove. I sit on my, like I second the Epsom salt baths. Like every Sunday, I dip myself, as I call it. I do the Epsom salt bath with a little what do you call it? Got my little bath bomb, little bubble bath. That is my I even have it like on my calendar. Like these are the things that I am going to do. Like this is my self-care for that day and whatnot. I exfoliate everything on that day. And I do there's like gratitude, mindfulness, trance and prompts and whatnot. And then I also have like this, it's called Nudge. They give you 3-minute journal prompts, and they're so easy I like that they're 3 minutes, because then when I look at my phone, I'm not like, well, I'll do this later. But if it's 3 minutes, like it's something I can do on my phone, it's something I can do in my notes, it's something like real easy, like I don't have to now I have actual journals, but it's not something that I have to like sit and do. But then I also, my apartment faces the pool in my complex. And so when I open the patio, between the pool, the sound of like the wind chamber that the pool makes, as well as like the freeway that's across a little bit, it makes the sound of like the ocean. And I'm like, this is my happy place. I'm in the ocean. I am by the ocean in the middle of the city, but that's fine. Yeah. That's fine. I'm going to pretend, and then I'm going to go sit. Like Teri was saying, like when there's like a sweet spot that you can find in the daytime, or even in the dusk, the morning and whatnot in Texas, where there will be a good breeze and it won't be too stifling. And I just sit on my porch and rock.
Yeah. Brenda?
Awesome. Disclaimer for me. So I have had a hysterectomy because I really couldn't deal with the cycles anymore. They were driving me crazy. So I had to just get everything out. But I can tell you what used to work for me would have been similar to you guys in terms of the grounding. But I am one for rituals. I love routines. So for me, it's getting up early in the morning. It's having that quiet time for myself. It is having that cup of tea. I love like a chamomile tea, something that is soothing, where I don't have to talk to anybody. So like my husband knows that's just my time, so just don't disturb. But yes, I like that peace and quiet for me. And then I do my journaling. Similar to you, I don't want to call your name wrong, doctor, so I'm just going to call you doctor. I do my gratitude, and I do that first thing in the morning as well, because it gives me a chance to reflect and see what has been good, you know, as opposed to getting bogged down with everything that has been going wrong. So I like to do the gratitude, and then I do concentrate on my breathing, because that is very important. I always find that, you know, when we are in that heightened state of pain, of spiraling, we tend to not breathe as slowly and regularly as we normally would, right? Even when we're in an anxiety driven mode, we tend not to breathe as normally as we would. And so I find breathing is very helpful, you know, making sure that you bring yourself back down. Remember that you are here on this earth, you know, that your feet are still planted on the ground and you breathe. So yeah, that's what works for me.
Okay. Terri B.
I like to do like some somatic healing techniques, whether it's yoga or dancing. Breath work is important. And something simple as working out. It doesn't have to be vigorous. You can just go for a nice walk on the beach or in the forest if you live close to a forest. And just taking time for yourself. Reading, just taking that time for yourself, whether you want to take 10 minutes, making that time for yourself and doing whatever you feel like doing at that time. It works wonders.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think that was the last question, but we're also close to our time. And so thank you again for all of this conversation, for your transparency. It is very much so needed. And that's why these conversations are extremely important. So thank you again. And I will hand it back to our wonderful folks at Endo Black.
Hey everybody, I'm Jasmine and I am a 2022 Endo Black ambassador. Thank you guys for this wonderful discussion. I really do appreciate it. So we just want to thank you all as well for attending tonight's Mocktail and Cocktails Let's Talk Mental Health. It was very good. So please continue to support our panelists and make sure you follow them on their social medias. And there's some upcoming dates that I want to talk about very quickly. On June 16th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are having a virtual panel discussion. It's health equity and racial injustice. We're also having a meet and greet August 20th in Maryland. And then October the 15th, we are having our awards gala at the National Harbor in Maryland as well. So as always, to learn more about Endo Black Incorporated, please visit our social medias and visit our website as well at endoblack.org. Thank you guys. Bye.